Oh, by the way, I'm supposed to let you know you're being recorded in
It's
case
all right. I can see, I get the message as well, so it's all right.
you got a message that you're being recorded.
Yeah. By attending this meeting, I consent to being recorded.
Yeah, I'm out here on the golf course. I just stopped. I put my Mai Tai over on the side. And my servant is carrying my golf clubs. I'm making him run up and down the fairway.
Yes.
Get some exercise. He's a little plump.
Well, that would do him the world of good.
He's a little plump.
Yeah.
Likes me to feed him beer.
That must be a
lot of free.
yes, that must be a world record for the hump in the middle of a fairway. Having said that,
Yeah, I make him go up and down that. It's like I call it Death Hill. He's got a slight cardiovascular problem, so it's kind of fun for me. I bet with friends we have a Deadpool about how long my caddy is gonna. People call him caddy. I call him my slave.
yeah.
It's going to last.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not very long at this rate. Not if he's got a full bag of clubs on his back.
No, he's an immigrant, by the way.
Oh, well, then you're saying his life is somehow less valuable.
I'm employing him because I was told that I can't play golf unless I employ an immigrant.
Yes.
He's not actually an immigrant. He's an undocumented, legal, better than me person, which is why I'm so jealous and I work him to death. At any rate, there's enough of that. He'll either survive or he won't. The money's on the line, and I give him a couple of weeks on the outside. I'm just breaking him down slowly.
Good.
Yeah. Because I'm all for undocumented. It took me 15 years to get my papers going through channels, so I really don't blame him.
No. I mean, the trouble is though, it's not good in the longer term.
Not good in the longer term. What's been going on with you?
Nothing much really. Same as always. Trying to do more reading. Trying to watch less Netflix.
My God, trying to do more reading. Yeah, you're in the right room, aren't you?
Well, yeah.
Are you in Oxford again?
Yeah,
I never know. Sometimes you're in Oxford. Sometimes you're on safari or however you say it, in Africa, and you're calling me from some savannah, chased by apes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think the last time I was on the savannah, the mobile telephone wasn't quite as ubiquitous as it is now. Thank God.
What? It wasn't ubiquitous.
Wasn't ubiquitous, no.
That means everywhere, right?
That means everywhere, yes.
Yeah, that's my big word for the day. I'll stop now.
Yeah, okay, good. You should quit while you're ahead.
My brain is empty.
That's because you're American.
I know I'm American, and I'm trying to dumb myself down.
Well, that's because the easiest way to do that, and the most efficient, and indeed the one which gives you the most personal financial grief, is of course to attend an American university, where they've made dumbing down into the raison d'etre of all these once august colleges.
Hey, you don't want to stick out from the crowd.
No, you don't have to stick out from the crowd.
You want to just be one of the fellas, one of the gals.
Yeah,
I don't. With everybody.
Yeah.
You don't want to. You want to. You don't want to be the. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Yes, but I mean, part of
the wood pile.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that for higher education has now become a business. So instead of having students to whom they try and impart knowledge, the students behave as consumers of any other good or service, and therefore expect if they're paying or their parents are paying money, they want a degree, whether they do any work or not. And that's part of the problem. Start in America is increasingly becoming the case in the United Kingdom, with the obvious results. These universities expand beyond their ability to actually sustainably expand. They become very dependent on foreign students who pay a lot more money than home students. And then a slight dip and everybody's in financial crisis.
Yeah, I'm in a crisis, financial. My exchequer is trying to fire me.
Yeah, I wish mine had fired me.
Now my bank manager just somebody around to take away my sofas. I said, you can't have my sofas, but take my girlfriend.
Ah, yes, good, excellent. Good idea. Killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, it's for those expenses. course, I'm going to need a hot water bottle on cold nights.
Exactly, you will, yes.
That's the way that goes. Look, this is annoying me because I got to be honest with you. I'm sick and tired of you English people, or British or whatever you are, um, with your hoity-toity accent and this look. I mean, I got on glasses and you have on glasses, but you look smart, and I look like I'm on a golf course chasing my caddy around with a putter.
Yes, well, I think if you were dressed like that on a British golf course, the secretary might have a word or two with you in the
You think so?
clubhouse. I imagine. So you're probably wearing shorts or something like that as well.
I'm wearing nothing. I'm
Yeah,
not wearing trousers at all.
Yeah.
Because I heard that on CNN, that's a really good thing to do. Yeah. Did you hear about that guy?
I heard about that guy. It's remarkable.
Yeah,
People
he didn't wear
forget.
trousers or something. He started playing around with his in pocket pool there in between his conversation. What the hell is wrong with him?
It's just
It's so good doing
extraordinary.
that.
It's
You've got to
extraordinary
be
what people
talking
get
to
up.
one girl or one person or whoever it is. You'd be talking to one person when you do that, and they got to be able to see what's going on. Otherwise, it's no good. Do I have to explain everything to everybody?
Well, I'm afraid increasingly one does.
Great
Have
Scott.
to explain a lot. Things we took for granted when you and I were a bit younger no longer seem to apply.
I feel like when we were a bit younger, it was probably just yesterday.
Well, yeah, well, I know in terms of the passage of time, it seems like yesterday.
The passage of time is about time's passage. And the thing about how time passes is that it is a passageway between the past and the future.
I know.
Passage of time. I'm writing something about that, inspired by the Vice President of the United States, who's one of the most eloquent. I mean, great Scott, she must have gone to Oxford and Cambridge, both, because that woman leaves no word unturned. She's one of the most brilliant.
I was reading a report in the paper today about her appearance on CNN last night and her inability to answer a simple question from a woman in the audience. She failed twice to answer the very simple question about her policy. And indeed, even when given a third opportunity to answer the question by Anderson Cooper, the compere or host of the program, or moderator, call him what you will, also failed a third time. So plenty of criticism of Trump and the billionaires he surrounds himself with. But the real issue that this woman from the audience asked was about her policies, that's Kamala Harris's policies on income tax and things like that. And she was just incapable of framing an answer at all, which is bizarre 2 weeks ahead of the election.
Yeah, it's funny because anytime they ask her a question, she says, well, that's a very good, very important question. And I want you to know that I have been and I will be, and I'm presently addressing that question in exactly the way it needs to be addressed. And I'm taking it as seriously as is possible to take a question that important. And not only that, everyone around me, my team, is heavily focused on answering that question, on looking at all the possible positive outcomes and avoiding the pitfalls.
Yes, and indeed, avoiding the question.
Yeah,
other
and
than
that's
to
how
throw in some,
everything.
other than to throw in some criticism of the other candidate, which is bizarre. Criticism of Trump from the Democratic candidate you would expect, but you would expect it really in the context of a discussion of their prospective policies. And the problem is she seems incapable on any program I've been able to follow, or any report of any program I've read, the one thing that she is incapable of doing is articulating a sensible policy. I mean, one thing last night was she seemed to be hinting that she might like to change the composition of the Supreme Court. She seemed completely blissfully unaware that not so long ago, President Biden had looked at this question and had decided that for all sorts of reasons, it simply wasn't on to change it from its current composition. And yet she seemed blissfully unaware of that, which is bizarre. Nobody is expected to perform perfectly on television. You and I don't when we're on television. But then neither you nor I is actually running for the important office of President of the United States, where you
I think
probably
either
have
one
to
of
make
us could
a
perform a
lot.
lot better than she does in answering.
Yeah, where you have to, perform it very competently every day with no doubt millions and millions of difficult questions. And if you can't even tell people what you want to do, how on earth are you going to actually be able to persuade them that you are the competent person at times of crisis?
Well, absolutely, but I don't think it really matters what she does, because everyone knows. Everyone knows. They don't know, then they've been living in a shack somewhere in the mountainside in a hidden valley that no one's ever been to, because the obvious thing is that she is battling Hitler. And when you're battling Hitler, you don't have to answer questions, because the choice is so obvious that actually answering questions when you're battling Hitler is like saying to Hitler, I take you seriously. And that's why she doesn't answer the question, because he doesn't deserve an answer. And everybody knows. I mean, the fact that Hitler can be running or standing, as you would say, President of the United States is beyond the pale. I don't understand it.
I don't understand. I mean, this whole, when in any debate, when everybody suddenly starts comparing whoever it is to Hitler, you know they've actually run out of intellectual vigor.
I don't agree with that, because
nothing better to say. I mean, if we want to, and I don't want to, and you don't want to, but if we want to draw the Hitler comparison in the current debate, I would argue that a closer parallel to Hitler, and in the particular case, the burning of the Reichstag, was in fact the burning of American cities during the Democrat, maybe not inspired, but certainly appeased in riots during the whole Black Lives Matter crisis.
Riots you're talking about.
Where whole cities such as Portland were essentially abandoned to rioters.
Hey, hang on a second. The Antifa riots never happened.
Oh, right.
It never happened. And the border has been solid the whole time. No one's come across that border. No one. Well, all you have to do is ask the genius who's running for president, who has been the genius beside Joe Biden for several years, who never noticed that he might be slightly demented. No, he's fine. She was saying that right up until the time that he had the debate with Hitler, and they had to.
Well, this is another point. Everybody, the media, Kamala Harris, everybody else was saying, when it was clearly not the case, that Joe Biden was fine and perfectly fit, etc., etc., etc. Then one day they decided he wasn't, and then all of a sudden they've decided that it's Donald Trump who is the one who is mentally and physically incapable. A strange reversal of approach, of attack.
Projection, according to Freud and Jung, his disciple. It's called projection. You project onto the other person your own deficiencies, your own fears and paranoia. It can be a number of things, but in this case, the paranoia or desires even of the Democrats well, they just project those on. So the threat to democracy is actually forcing Joe Biden, who was voted for during the primaries or whatever by the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
He was voted to be the presidential candidate, but that wasn't good enough. They had to install Kamala. That was she never got a vote, because everybody knows. Here's the amount of fingers you need to count the votes she got when she was standing, which is 0.
Exactly. She was eliminated first last time, right?
So the threat to democracy is obviously the Republicans, because the party of Lincoln, those are the evil ones. The evildoers is the party of Lincoln, the party that Lincoln brought to prominence, because Lincoln obviously was a fan of Hitler. I mean, he and Nietzsche used to correspond, apparently, about the Superman, and this is how Nietzsche got a lot of his ideas. God is dead, and all that other stuff. Walking on the top of the mountain, Zarathustra, all that stuff. It's from Lincoln.
Of course it is.
And led straight to Nazism through the Republican strain. I'm telling you. I mean, did you see James Carville?
Yeah.
He's right up against the thing. He's going, "That guy's crazy. He's a crazy man. He's gonna take over the whole world. Start with the United States. That's what he's gonna do. He's a fucker. That's what he is." Pretty good, huh?
I know, amazing.
I love me some James Carville. Actually, I still like him, but I think he's gone off. Don't you?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are so blinded by the anti-Trump sentiment that they seem to have abandoned rational thought in every other area of their life as well.
Yeah, well, Trump's an asshole.
You know, and then, of course, people who should.
He's a property developer. Can you name a property developer who's not an asshole?
Well, no. That's our
I can think of one.
Yeah,
Ben
but
Habib. I know him. He's a decent guy. You missed me. He's
a
decent guy, and he's a property developer. He's okay. Yeah, but that's about the only one I know. I'm property developers going to. Hey, if you're a property developer and you're watching this, I apologize. Write in and tell us how great you are, because you will. If you want to know how great a property developer is, just ask him.
Of course. Well, exactly. I know there are many reasons for saying that Trump is not the ideal candidate. And he does have, and I think he does have many failings as a presidential candidate. But to suggest that he is somehow the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler, or that his modus operandi is the same as Adolf Hitler's, is really far-fetched.
Hey,
so far-fetched as to call into question the mental capacity of the people making that charge.
Yes, you're right.
In my humble opinion.
Your opinion is. Both of our opinions are very humble. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't think Trump is a particularly attractive candidate. And I think he's
a well-known eccentric who's been bombing around New York on his father's money since the 70s.
And he's not a great property developer, because if he'd invested his father's money in a Standard & Poor's tracker fund and done nothing with it all these years, he'd be better off than he is now with the various failed business ventures. But the point is, he is what he is. Yeah. He is a property developer from Queens or wherever he's from. And if you vote a property developer from Queens as the president of the United States, guess what? In the White House, you get a property developer from Queens, with all that means. But the idea, the idea that he is somehow going to take America down the route of pre-war Germany, I find most far-fetched.
Yeah, because
where are the sports stadia? Where are the autobahns? Where is the people's motor car? Indeed, where are the smart uniforms?
Well, he's doing a rally in the smart uniforms. Exactly. Is that damn red tie? He's going to strangle himself with that one day. Probably wears it to bed. But until Melania says take that off. I don't know what's a.
Yes, he probably says if you're going to bring a tie to bed, please don't wear it.
Yeah, don't exactly, or put it on. Tie me up. So tie me down, tie me up, however it is. I was going to say that I think you're missing the point. As wise as you are, because you are wise and
very kind of you to say so.
Excellent. Two excellent sons who are doing great things. One of your sons is a pilot. The other has just started on scholarship at university in Britain. They're trilingual little geniuses. So that's some reflection on you. I only wish that I could say half of that about myself, which I can't. But you're missing one thing, a wise one.
Oh yes, what's that?
And I hate to even bring it up. That it's not just Hitler. I know I said Hitler, but an article in the Atlantic, did you see that? I don't know if I think it was by Anne Applebaum. That maybe it wasn't. Did I get that wrong? Anyway, there's an article in the last issue of the Atlantic. I read the Atlantic to see how the crazies are thinking, just like I read some of the extreme right stuff to see how the crazies are thinking on that side. So we can, I can find out, who not to buy a drink for. But she's comparing Trump not just to Hitler, but to Stalin and to Mussolini. But I think that actually you can't be all three, because Mussolini is definitely a lightweight. He only killed a few 100,000 people, and mostly in Ethiopia. And his army was terrible. Great uniforms, though, to go back to your point. And then, but if you look at Trump, he hasn't invaded any countries. He was actually president for 4 years. No wars. No countries were invaded. Stalin, one of the main instigators of the Russian Revolution.
Exactly.
Very close with Trotsky. They were the two, you might say, prime lieutenants of Lenin. And then you had all the millions that Stalin killed later of his own people. Let's just start there with his own people. Millions.
I know. Terrible.
He put the goo in gulag, right? And then made you into goo after they killed you. But no, it was the Germans. But the other one is Mussolini. I never saw Trump march on any cities. Didn't march on Rome, did he? Didn't march on New York or Atlanta. I mean, no one would march on Atlanta anyway. You just drive through on your way somewhere. But the other one was, who was the other one? Oh, Hitler, we said. So, he didn't invade Poland or Czechoslovakia, or take over Canada like an Anschluss.
No, at all.
He didn't invade Mexico. And in fact, there were no wars, and there was no war in the Middle East. The Iranians didn't get the payoffs that they got from the Democrats.
Yeah, exactly.
And look at that problem now. I don't know. I do know, actually. He's not anything like those three people. He's an asshole. So what? Who in Washington is not an asshole? I mean, that's on the resume. I mean, that's on the, what do you call it when you fill in the blanks when you get a new job? It's on there. You have to check asshole. Yes.
Of course. No, the issue is simply it's a failure of the Democratic and Republican parties to choose somebody whom the American people would actually like to vote for and to be given.
Well, this is the problem.
I suspect this is the third American presidential election in a row where most Americans who are, decent Americans probably look and think, gosh, I wish I didn't have to choose between either of these two characters. And that must be a failure of the political parties, and maybe it's a failure of the population for not engaging at a grassroots level with the political parties in the way people used to. It's the same in the United Kingdom. Membership of political parties is a fraction of what it was 30, even 20 years ago. And so you have an ever smaller number of people making decisions, choosing candidates in their own image, which is not necessarily the image of the country as a whole. And this, I suspect, is part of the problem.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And also, we're also to blame indirectly because people, then the media, collectively together, and social media more recently, have made the life of all politicians so miserable that nobody normal would actually ever wants to really go in and do the job. Because they think, why should I submit my family to this constant intrusion, this constant criticism, this constant unpleasantness, and indeed, as we've seen in the case of Donald Trump recently, physical danger from would-be assassins, when I could have a quiet life, earn lots of money, and be unbothered by all of this. So the result of that is, and we see it increasingly in the United Kingdom as well, is that the people who do come forward to be involved in politics are the people who are really least qualified and least capable of doing the job well.
Well, I mean, UK politics were a disaster, and the Conservatives just basically, this is going on a lot. They just squabble so much amongst themselves that they can't. What becomes more important is their ego and their individual power rather than, and they're jockeying for fucking position like dirty bureaucrats, and the corner office with the great view, and
exactly.
but they don't have a view like me on the golf course here.
They don't. They're not on the golf course, unfortunately.
Whoa! Right.
Exactly. And that is the problem. Personal ego is taking over from any sense of wanting to bring about useful change. The whole, a lot of the politicians nowadays are people who are otherwise unemployable.
They're otherwise unemployable, and you knew them at school, a lot of these people, and they were, again, to go back and to where we were before, they were assholes, a lot of these people. Because, I'm in all seriousness, if I can be serious for a second, you don't have to be an asshole to be a politician.
No, of course not.
It helps.
Yeah, it helps. Well, as I say, because I think a lot of decent people have been driven out of it.
Yeah.
By the complete nonsense on social media and rumors about people which are completely untrue. But by the time they're proven to be untrue, of course, the world has forgotten about it, moved on, and the career or the life of the person concerned has been destroyed, and nobody is ever prepared to go back and say, sorry, we were wrong about this person. We should give them a second chance.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole cancel thing, which is made easier by social media. You can easily overload somebody's Twitter or whatever it is. I mean, Instagram. Nobody's on Facebook anymore, are they? Just you and me.
Just you and I. Yeah, it's rather nice. We've got a bit more space now. We can stretch our legs.
Yeah, this is more fun. YouTube's my thing. I like YouTube.
Yeah, you do like YouTube, yeah.
I love YouTube, and boy, I've been following YouTube since it started, and watching. I remember when I lived in Nicaragua, I used to use YouTube all the time. I used to post a lot of things.
There's a lot of actually,
that like 2000.
Yeah, there's a lot of useful stuff on YouTube if you can take the trouble to find it. There's a lot of rubbish, of course, as there is anywhere on the interweb these days.
Yeah, but well, there is. Yeah.
I mean, Facebook, I think, is becoming full of AI-generated nonsense. And I was listening on Radio 4 on the Today program a couple of weeks ago, maybe, to some professor who said the problem now is that this AI stuff is being picked up by other AI stuff. So we're in this downward spiral of the generation of complete rubbish. By AI articles picking up another AI articles for their own generation of information. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
And the problem with AI articles is that there's no, like a lot of internet writing, I don't know how much of it's AI generated, there's no personality. You don't know anything.
There's no
soul about the writer.
Yeah. There's no soul. It's very bland.
There's no opinion. There's opinion in everything else but writing now. And writing is all about opinion and point of view, isn't it?
It is.
It
is. Great writing is about opinions and points of view.
Yeah. They're really compelling writing. Yeah. So anyway, but this is a disease of the time. I think that AI could be very useful for research and things like that. And, professional gobbledygook that you need to cut through that just creates such a headache, like writing for a lot of people, writing a CV or something like that. And creating some logos and things like that. You can doing that on your own. Saves you a lot of time and money. Can be very helpful, I think, in creative process for people. But relying on it totally without, somebody, come on, play through. Play through. They're coming on. They're going by. Round the hill, So they keep, I'm sitting in this chair out here, this rocking chair out on the fairway. So I could easily be beamed. Do you know what beamed means?
I remember he's struck on the head by a golf ball in this particular
case. Struck on the head by something, usually a baseball or a golf ball. Baseball, I think, is where it comes from. Anyway, you're a cricket guy. That's not baseball, is it? Yeah. I've been writing a piece. There was a 1958 interview with Aldous Huxley and Mike Wallace. I think I was mentioning it to you the other day. You mentioned
it the other day, yes.
Yeah, Nicholas. This is Nicholas. I'm Will. Might as well say our last name is Richardson. We're long lost cousins. What can I say? And yeah, and so well, we did the family tree, and actually my mother's still working on it, but that could take a lot longer. Because she gets busy, she get diverted with
of course,
botany and things like that, botany and sewing on buttons and other bees. But in fact, she likes bees. Honey, for example, is a bee product or byproduct. I don't know, how do you say that? Is it a bee product or a byproduct? I don't know.
Haha, very good.
Anyway, so where was I? Oh yeah,
your oldest Huxley article.
Huxley, yeah. Mike Wallace was a huge figure. You can find him on YouTube, possibly Rumble too, but certainly on YouTube. There's tons of stuff from when he was reporting. He was on 60 Minutes, one of the founders of it. But he did this interview show in the late 50s, which was very popular. He interviewed all the a lot of the famous minds of the time, and one of them was Aldous Huxley, who of course made taking LSD popular even before Timothy Leary, and also wrote Brave New World, which everyone knows his name because we all have to read it in school. In the Anglo-Saxon sphere, the Anglo-Saxon countries, Canada, United States, Britain, New Zealand, Australia, right? Is there another one? Maybe South Africa. You have to read Brave New World in school, like 1984. And it's funny, they let us read that stuff, and then they try and pull it on us later in life, right?
Well, we seem to be living in a period which is sort of taking bits of 1984 and mixing them with bits of Brave New World.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And that's why I was fascinated by this interview, which is freely available, Mike Wallace and Aldous Huxley. And I'm writing a piece about it because it's uncanny the way the great mind of Aldous Huxley is able to look around him, rather like Orwell. I mean, they're both that type of person. H.G. Wells was another one. And look into the future and say, this is what's going to happen. You didn't get everything right, but you got a lot of it right. And maybe we'll talk about that another time. I don't want to get into it because you need to see the show first before we could talk about it, I think, properly. But anyway, I'm writing a piece about that.
Oh, good.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's an essay. It's a lot of fun, but it's, I mean, the way he introduces it, Mike Wallace, he goes, and now a vision of hell on earth will be brought to life. And I'm terrified, just watching the beginning of it. By Aldous Huxley, the author of Brave New World, who told us what kind of shit we can expect to be covered in the reasonably near future when there's not to piss in. The planet is overrun with human feces.
Gosh, what a terrible vision.
It's like Brave New World.
Yeah.
But we get soma. What is soma, right?
Exactly. Well, it's whatever concoction people have these days, I suppose.
Oxycontin, isn't it? And fentanyl and all of these things that take your brain away, take your will away, take your brain away.
Which is frightening. I mean, really frightening.
Yeah, it's terrible. The prediction is terrible. Terrifying is the word. I mean, terrible in the sense of terrifying. Not terrible like, oh, it's really bad, man. No, I don't mean that. I mean terrible as in terrifying, as in terrific horror. That's a great word, isn't it? Terrific.
Terrific is a good word.
No one uses it anymore.
Nobody. Well, people use. I mean, again, it's another aspect of 1984. We're into the Newspeak dictionary territory. People use fewer and fewer words.
They do. Yeah. And
Um,
don't come around here using your words.
exactly, which means if you have fewer words, you have less ability to express complex thought. And therefore you have less ability to rebel against whatever is going wrong in your society.
Complex thought is the last thing we want, Nicholas. What's wrong with you?
Well, you and I want complex thought.
We do?
Of course we do.
All right.
Without the ability to think in a complex manner, we wouldn't be able to. I mean, the other, and it's related. The other point, of course, from Brave New World. The other sentence, which always I always remember, is the Deltas were happy because they didn't know they were Deltas.
Oh yeah.
And this is society today. You give people the internet, you give them Netflix, you give them, cheap alcohol.
That's in the essay.
You give them, pre-processed food, let them go to football matches, and they don't think.
Yep.
They don't see that everything else is being slowly taken away from them. And this is the point. And they I'm sure most people have this vestigial faith in politicians, and they don't realize that the nature of the politicians they're dealing with now, these are people who cannot be trusted as they once were trusted to look after things.
Why can't people be trusted? I'll tell you why, and tell me if you agree. Because Harry Truman, let's talk about by using a superlative example, okay? Not just an ordinary example. Let's use a superlative, an exaggerated example, which is when Harry S. Truman left the presidency, he was broke. Now, he really was broke. And there were no golden handshakes for him or big presidential book deals or anything like that, because money was actually worth something back then. It wasn't just an idea that was exploited by the extremely rich and powerful institutions. It was something that was backed by gold and had a real value in terms of goods and services. Okay, so he didn't get paid that much as president. When he left, he was broke. He didn't have enough to live on. Unlike many of our presidents before that, were men of money. They had money, right? Roosevelt was very rich, for example, both Roosevelts. Woodrow Wilson was well off, having been a college president, amongst other things. And many of them came from wealthy families or had made money like Harding by grafting in Ohio. But if you look at Truman, then with no money, they said we have to institute for this because he was beloved, by the time he left. People had a lot of respect for Truman, whereas they laughed at him like hell when he was the vice president under Roosevelt. But anyway, they created the presidential pension for him because he was broke. He was the president. But now look, Obama, okay, Bush was rich. His family's rich. But Obama had no money. He's never in business or anything like that. I think he practiced a bit of law. He was in the Senate. That's not a bad salary but it's not, Washington's expensive and you have to keep up appearances, so you're not making a fortune. And he gets a book deal along with his wife for, tens and tens of millions of dollars out of being the president. Well, you're not supposed to golden handshake people like that in the old days. And the fact that that goes on now is very corrupting on, I'll give you another example. The quarterback at the University of Georgia is a guy called Carson Beck. He's like 22 years old, I think, now. He's worth millions of dollars. He got a contract with a private jet company, $1 million. He got a contract with a fast food, Mexican fast food, Chipotle, for another $1 million and something dollars. He's getting, all kinds of, when he signs things, he gets cash in hand for his name, image, and likeness. So here's a kid and this year he's having a terrible year. Since he got the money and bought a Lamborghini, He can't play anymore. He can't concentrate. He's like up and down, up and down. Why? Because his dream was realized too early.
Exactly.
He's not a professional. That money should be in a trust, and they shouldn't be able to touch it until they graduate. It's so corrupting to do that. And not only that, does everyone on the team get a Lamborghini? No. So he just says basically to the rest of the team, fuck you, I'm better than you are. And he's not. He's not the best player on the team. He's not the best player at quarterback in college this year. And he's playing terribly. It's the same idea. Rewarding people just for nothing, basically. It's just business.
Exactly.
It's propaganda. It's advertising money. And that's a corrupting influence. And it's going to kill that sport. It's already starting to kill college football, but it's going to kill it. Kill it dead as a doornail eventually. But it's the same idea as what's going on with Obama. It wasn't enough being president, right? It's not enough to be a great quarterback and get a great education. You got to be made for life out of it. But everybody on your team is not made for life. Everybody in America, if you're the president, is not made for life. Everybody doesn't get a book deal. You know, you have to be the you have to be the Hawk Tua girl. Yeah. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. That in itself.
Talking about that on a peak, and then suddenly you're making millions of dollars.
Yeah, that kind of sums up the depth to which we've sunk.
We're all whores. Okay. Yeah.
Really. I mean, look at another one, Tony Blair. You know, had never done any job in government, became prime minister, left being prime minister, and became exceedingly wealthy very quickly. How is that possible? Used not to be the case.
Bill Clinton. You know what? The salary for back in the days when he was governor of Arkansas, which was his main job ever, was, if he did several terms in a row, was $30-something thousand a year, which is more than it's worth now, but it's not a lot. It wasn't a lot of money even back then, right?
Exactly. You know,
and he ended up with the Clinton Foundation, and they're hugely, you know, it's just and the idea that, oh, I deserve this.
But
I deserve to be paid.
They don't deserve it.
They're not in business.
Yeah, people who actually start a business and employ people, and then they do deserve it because they've taken a risk and they are responsible every morning for waking up and say, okay, I have to earn enough money today to provide for me, my family, and the 150 people who work for me and their families. That's a tremendous responsibility.
Business, you should be. You have to think about the welfare, not only the business, but the people who make the business happen.
Exactly. And the politicians don't do that. And if they make a complete mess of it, then they don't bear any personal responsibility.
No, they just get voted out of office or they resign.
Yeah. Gordon Brown, when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer under Tony Blair, as a political gesture, sold the Bank of England's gold reserves at a record low price, purely to make a point, costing the country billions and billions of pounds. No, didn't face any sanction for that. You know, he was essentially squandering the accumulated wealth of the nation for his own political ends. I mean,
Tony Blair is very boring, actually.
Yeah, he is.
I find as a person, I just find him extremely unoriginal.
But the trouble is, you have these younger politicians who've never done anything, and they rapidly become
energetic. You got to give them that.
Yeah, but they rapidly become fall into the thrall of anybody who's really wealthy. They sort of envy them. You can't imagine Mrs. Thatcher being envious of anybody, no matter how much money they had.
She didn't actually, and that was her strength. She didn't give a damn, and she grew up in a business, didn't she?
Yes. So she did.
She made them do what she wanted them to do, not the other way around.
Exactly.
And she didn't get. Well, her husband had some money. It wasn't.
Yeah, but not a huge amount. I mean, he was sort of well off rather than being extremely wealthy.
They were independently okay. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. She's a good example. Although I had my uh, doubts about her, you know. But I had my doubts about her when I was younger. But obviously, I was younger because she was Prime Minister 30 some years ago.
Frightening how quickly those 30 odd years have gone.
Yeah, no, it's frightening. But yeah, don't talk about it. Don't talk about the war. And I once walked around behind her at a journalist event. You know, I was doing a little reporting, and she was visiting in Warsaw, and was in Warsaw from London at that point. I was traveling there to Central Europe a lot and writing a lot at that time. And she was going around. She was opened a hotel or something, I think the Bristol Hotel. It was owned. Rocco Forte had bought it, and so anyway, I followed her around, and she was rather diminutive. I didn't realize how small she was, like the Queen, very tiny. Reminded me of my grandmother, who was rather that size. So she had that big hair to make herself look taller. Obviously, that's what that was all about. And I remember her walking on the sides of her. Her feet must have been killing her. She had that pocketbook, which was always dragging the ground, and her feet were turned outward at the ankle, and it just looked like her shoes were killing her. And at that point, I felt kind of sorry for her. I felt like, gosh, we should do a fireman's lift and carry this lady around, or get a sedan chair. She deserves it, you know. She's quite a formidable person and mind. So I got respect for her from that grandmotherly impression I had of her, which was I can still see her walking around like that, very human, touching. You know, in fact, you're not going to cry, are you?
No, I'm not going to cry. No,
I'm just talking about you're something of a sovereign there. Yeah.
No,
Just a sovereign.
Yes, I think her cabinet, her first cabinet, represented the last traditional British cabinet we've had, unfortunately. And
there were a lot of great people in that cabinet. I didn't like them all, but there were a lot of great.
But they behaved like a cabinet, and they were great people, many of them. And now, since then, we've just had an ever declining standard of people.
Yeah.
With one or two exceptions, but generally the overall caliber has been very low. Because as a nation, we don't
circus now. I mean, it's
we're not producing the people.
Says, it's all over.
They don't go into politics, as we discussed a little earlier. And this is the problem: the quality of our people. The world has become more complex. The world has become more dangerous.
Yeah.
And the quality of the politicians who are looking at these matters on our behalf are ever less capable. And this is the really frightening thing that folk don't seem to understand. It's all right saying, oh, all politicians are terrible, they're all dishonest, they're all like. That's irrelevant. The point is, who are the people who are analysing all this information and trying to reach rational decisions about the world around them? And it's quite clear. I mean, we can take one example, David Lammy, the current British Foreign Secretary. It is quite clear, and although he allegedly and probably did go to Harvard, God knows what he studied while he was there, it certainly wasn't rational thought. And he is just really functionally not very bright.
Well, I mean, everybody say to be bright to be a politician, but you got to have some kind of charisma. Well, not everybody does. Like a lot of these people don't. A lot of the people in the British politics are more like, civil servants, bureaucrats, professional bureaucrats.
Well, there's a lot of them these days have not done anything apart from
politics.
Worked in the public sector or worked as so-called special advisors to ministers or whatever it is. So they have no experience of what you and I would call the real world. And yet they pontificate about what business should be doing. So when the head of Amazon Web Services, I think it was Amazon Web Services, a man who's ultimately responsible for the employment of 1.5 million people around the planet, said, I think it's a good idea if the majority of our workers spent the majority of their time in the office. The British business secretary, a man who's never employed anybody, who's never worked in the private sector, said, oh, well, you know, there's a lot to be said for working at home, blah, blah, blah. Extraordinary. Who do you think knows the most about it? The man at Amazon or a man who's never done anything? I think the man at Amazon has a better idea.
Well, it's just a glib answer, isn't it? But going back to the election, because the election is going to be happening, we were talking about earlier, but the elections are going to be happening in
2 weeks.
Well, less. It's like 10 or 11 days. 11 days from now. What do you think? What is your, you put your finger up and test the wind. Which way is it?
I think it's going to be very close, obviously. I think it'll be Trump by a whisker.
Trump by a whisker.
I think despite a lot of people not really, or a lot of people amongst the intelligentsia sort of turning their nose up at Trump, I think enough ordinary folk will look at what Trump has to say. They will look at his record, such as it was. They will look at what Kamala Harris has to say. And they will probably think, well, I'd rather it was neither of them, but on that basis, I'll plump for Trump because at least he can articulate something.
Inflation and the border and lying about Biden's incompetence for 4 years.
Exactly.
Because he was already incompetent. That's why they hit him in the last election.
Well, exactly right. So I think, on that basis, I think Trump will just do it. But I mean, again, we're dealing with, you know, we all say, oh, well, the electoral college is so wrong because you can win in the electoral college but lose the popular vote. But that's the whole point. The founding fathers were very clever. They have an electoral college to make sure. Otherwise, everything in America will be decided by 3 states. You know, California, New York, and Texas, or wherever it is, or Florida, whatever. Have the, you know, and this is the whole point. Like you have 2 senators for Wyoming.
College, so you're not bullied by a few population centers. Right? Exactly. Great point.
Which is why Wyoming, with a population I think of less than 1 million people, has 2 senators, and California, with a population of 50 million people, has 2 senators, because it's about balances.
But they have more representatives. I try to explain that to people, not American, and they really don't get it a lot of the times. You almost have to draw them a map. Because people just don't take it in.
Right.
It's each state has 2 senators, okay? But that's equal for every state, no matter the size. Then you have this other group of people called representatives. What? What?
Exactly.
It's like, no. And that's based on the population of each state. California has more than Idaho, you know, much more than.
I mean, really, the more you think about it, the more you realize how really very, very clever the founding fathers were when they framed the American Constitution. It's almost miraculously good that here we are over 200 years later, 250 years later.
Think how much better they would have been if they hadn't been slaveholding sons of bitches.
Yeah, but that's, you know, again, this is another point. You know, the idea
Benjamin Franklin didn't have slaves.
People have been wanting to tear down statues of Washington and Jefferson next.
Yeah.
Because that's actually more important than worrying about North Korean troops being sent to fight in Ukraine, which is a lot more important.
That's another subject. We'll get on Ukraine the next time.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's this self-indulgence combined with ignorance, which is so alarming.
I think that we could almost do daily ones of these, you know, and we just talk about a short subject. We can just talk for 10, 15 minutes.
I know there's just so much going on, but people are obsessed with the wrong thing. Like at the Commonwealth Conference, now they want reparations for slavery. There is nobody alive today living in a Commonwealth country who personally is a victim of slavery. So who wants reparations and from whom? It's another example of a grievance culture. Let's sit around and do nothing, because only the white man is capable of being guilty of anything. If you don't like it, I would say to the West Indians, if I were in power, if you don't like it, here's the reparation I will give you for your feeling that you've been badly treated by slavery. Here is a train, here's an aeroplane ticket from your Caribbean island to West Africa, because it's the governments of those countries who, going back in history, were responsible for selling you or your ancestors to the Europeans. So if you're not happy, here is the train ticket. Sorry, aeroplane ticket.
Slavery is another subject. This is too long to get into now. But what you're
I
saying,
don't know, but I'm just, I'm just
Yeah.
really offer it as an example of the inability nowadays to have rational thought. People are incapable of seeing the big issue.
Well, they weren't born as slaves.
No, they weren't born as slaves.
So, and their parents weren't, and their grandparents weren't.
No, and they know, and slavery.
Grandparents weren't. Today, maybe one.
And the British abolished the slave trade over 200 years ago. And then the Royal Navy spent a lot of time in its West African squadrons, at great cost to the lives of the sailors involved, in stopping the ships of other countries which happened to have slaves on board and freeing the slaves. But there's no credit given for that, because, you know, and nobody goes back to the Romans, the Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, the Arabs, and all the other people who had slaves. It's only a small percentage of the white Europeans who can possibly be guilty of this worldwide scourge, and only that small percentage is required to potentially pay something to people today who had nothing to do with it, didn't suffer from it, but just see their way to a free meal, ultimately. And if we had proper politicians, they would stand up and say what I've just said, and everybody else would shut up. Because they would realize, yes, in actual fact, that is correct.
Okay, so
I missed my vacation.
You did, actually. That was a great speech. I thought I didn't know what to do. I said, go around. Go around. Great Scott. Yeah, go on. Believable. They'll start hitting the ball at me in a second.
There you go.
In a minute, in a New York second. Okay, so this is fun. I think that we should do this instead of have our telephone conversations virtually every day. We should just do it on Skype, you know?
Good idea.
When we have time, and because we both doing lots of news type stuff all the time, and this is what we focus on, you know, professionally. So it might be worth doing it. And this technology, great though. We can just sit here on Skype and have a conversation, and then get people to join us. There's lots of people who can join in with us too.
Of course.
I know a lot of people from my show, you know, and acquaintances from previous interviews and hours and hours on TV that, as you have, that we can get and really get into some provocative subjects, as if we hadn't been provocative today, and cover a range of topics. How about that? Wouldn't it be great to get Stacy Keach on? He's an old friend of mine.
There you are.
A great actor. Oh my God, he's a great actor. Great artist, great man as well. I'll try to get Stacy on. For example, he's an intelligent guy. You know, he's not just some actor. He's really smart, and he's a great stage actor. Which, you know, like Hopkins, Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins, yes.
Yeah, he's a man of consequence. Or Sir Ian McKellen, you know, another man of consequence. These are great artists. Anyway, we can do those sort of things. Maybe get that Russian guy on, the Russian economist who used to work for Putin, to talk about what the hell's going on there, and so forth. Let's have some fun, no?
Of course.
Bring some people, some original stuff, yeah?
Very much so.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for joining me.
A pleasure, as always.
On the program, our initial program. I don't know should we call it the Richardsons?
Yeah, whatever.
Like the Osmonds. We'll get my ex-wife to come on as well. My ex-wives. There's a few of them. I'm not proud of that, but it's true. It's true. Warts and all, folks.
Warts
and all.
yeah.
I got a bad wart right here, actually.
I think it's more detailed than that.
It's
more detail than the viewers were hoping for.
Yeah, that nobody wants to see my warts. I don't know why people say that. I'm going to show you warts and all. Nobody wants to see your warts.
No, they don't.
They don't want to hear about them either.
No, they'd rather not.
Okay. All right. So thanks very much, Nicholas.
Thank you, Will.
Nicholas Richardson. I'm Will Richardson. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and like and subscribe for more. You can't stop us. We're going to keep coming back, just like a boomerang. Smack you right in the kisser, right? Okay. Cheers.
Okay. Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.